So today, we're going to tackle a big one, mastering how to tell time and talk about schedules in French. But, instead of just running through boring lists, we're going to do it through a story, a little mystery about a young guy and an old clockmaker. All right, let's jump right in. It's probably one of the very first questions you learn in any new language. What time is it? But in French, it's not so simple. How you ask and how you answer really depends on who you're talking to. So today, we're going to cover all of it, from super polite requests to just casual questions with friends. So you're ready for absolutely any situation. So to get a handle on all this, we're going to dive into a short story called The Mystery of the Clockmaker's Calendar. We're going to follow our main character, Mark, as his simple quest to get a watch fixed turns into this really practical lesson on how time actually works in French.
All right, so our story begins. In this first chapter, we're going to run into our very first key phrases. Now, I want you to listen really closely for the tiny changes in the language depending on who Mark is talking to. It's an absolutely crucial detail in French.
So, in a quiet little village, Mark, who's always curious, stops an old man on the street. Auriez-vous l'heure, s'il vous plaît? He asks. The man just smiles. Il est exactement midi. Okay, let's hit pause right there. Auriez-vous l'heure is our first big example. I want you to notice the verb here, auriez. That's the conditional tense. This isn't just, do you have the time? It's a much more delicate, would you have the time? And that one little change adds this whole layer of politeness that's just perfect for talking to a stranger, especially an older person. And what about the answer? Il est exactly midi. See, in French conversation, you almost never say 12 for 12 p.m. You use the special word, midi. It's just like using minuit for midnight. Honestly, getting this right is a total game changer for sounding like a native speaker. Okay, back to Mark. He takes one look at his schedule and bam, panic sets in. He's late. He yells over to his friend, Peux-tu me dire l'heure, s'il te plaît? His friend glances at a nearby clock tower and shouts back, Il est 2h15. Now let's compare those two questions. See the shift? With the old man, Mark used the formal vous and that polite conditional tense. But with his friend, it's the informal tu and the simple present tense, peux-tu. This right here shows you a fundamental principle of French. Your relationship with a person completely dictates your grammar. You use formal for respect and informal for familiarity. Simple as. So why is Mark suddenly in such a rush? Well, he checked his Emploi du Temps. This is your schedule, your timetable, basically the master plan for your entire day. It's an absolutely essential term to know whether you're a student, you're working, or you're just trying to get through the day in a French-speaking country. And his friend's answer was, Il est 2h15. Now, écart literally translates to and quarter. It's the standard, totally normal conversational way to say 15 minutes past the hour. Super common. You're going to hear this one all the time. And now, on to Chapter 2. Mark has made it to the clockmaker's workshop, but his quest is far from over. In this part, our vocabulary is going to shift from just telling time to the more complicated world of scheduling and appointments. So Mark gets to the workshop, and right away he switches back to a polite tone. He asks the assistant, Pourriez-vous me dire l'heure, s'il vous plaît? The assistant looks at the clock and replies, Il est 6h moins le quart. And this introduces the other side of the clock. We just learned it quart for quarter past. Well, now we have moins le quart for quarter to. Moins literally means minus, so 6h moins le quart is 6 o'clock minus a quarter. In other words, 5:45. The system is actually really simple. You add for past and you subtract for to. But Mark keeps trying. He asks if the clockmaker is disponible, available. The assistant pulls out the calendrier mensuel and, gives him some bad news. The clockmaker is en vacances. Okay, let's unpack that. Disponible just means available. It sounds like dispensable, but it's the opposite. Easy enough to remember. Calendar mensuel is the monthly calendar. Mensuel is related to month, makes sense. And en vacances means on vacation. 3 super important terms for planning basically anything. Now, I need you to pay very close attention here. The assistant says the clockmaker is on vacation du 12 au 19 mai. This is a critical distinction you have to get right. You use du au when you're talking about a range of dates. But if you're talking about a range of hours, like from 9 to 5, you must use de à. For example, de 9h à 17h. This is a really common mistake, so remembering this one little rule will make you sound so much more fluent. All right, on to our final chapter. Mark is absolutely determined to get this watch fixed.
This last part is all about locking down that all-important meeting, and it's going to introduce some more subtle vocabulary for talking about different parts of the day. Mark, completely undeterred, switches back to an informal tone with the assistant and asks, "Es-tu libre mardi avant-midi?" But she just shakes her head. No, he has rendezvous with the mayor.
Okay, a couple things to unpack here. First, libre. This is basically a synonym for disponible, and it means free or available. Second, avant-midi. Now, this is an interesting one. While le matin is the general word you use for morning, avant-midi refers specifically to the later part of the morning, the bit right before noon. It's a subtle difference, and you'll actually hear it a lot more in some places, like Quebec. And, of course, you've got l'après-midi for the afternoon and le soir for the evening. And then we get to a classic, rendezvous. I mean, this word is so perfectly French that English just had to borrow it. It can mean anything from a formal appointment to a casual meeting with friends or even a romantic date. It's just an incredibly versatile and absolutely essential word you need to know. The assistant finally tells Mark to come back later. When he does, the time is 8h moins 20. So let's break that down. 8h is 8 o'clock, and moins 20 is minus 20. So the time is 20 minutes to 8, or 7:40. It's the exact same moins logic we used for quarter to, but you can apply it to any number of minutes. Pretty cool, right? And just like that, Mark finally meets the clockmaker. Our story is over, but in the process, we've built a really solid foundation for telling time and scheduling in French. So let's do a quick recap just to put all these pieces together. Okay, so let's quickly run down that ladder of politeness again. At the very top, for maximum formality, you've got auriez-vous l'heure? A really solid, polite option that works in most situations is pourriez-vous me dire l'heure? And then, with your friends and family, the simple, direct peux-tu me dire l'heure is perfect. See, it all just comes down to the context. We followed Mark all the way on his journey, and we unpacked a ton of grammar and vocabulary. So now it's your turn. I want you to take a look at your own Emploi du Temps. Using everything you just learned, how would you answer this question? À quelle heure est votre prochain rendez-vous? Go on, give it a shot. Practicing is truly the best way to make all these new phrases feel like your own.